Hey everybody, and welcome to the Double Stuff Podcast, where we're double the hosts, double the topics, and double the fun. I'm Dan.
I'm Charity.
I'm Alan.
And I'm Sarah.
Alan is the Doppler effect on today's episode.
There's actually two of them. They're sitting on opposite sides of the mic.
So
It really only works if you have two microphones.
it doesn't only work that.
We'll see how it turns out.
So as we've been doing all season, we have been drawing topics out of a hat, so to speak.
A plastic
Kind of a weird hat, yeah. And we have been talking about those to bring you double the topics to go along with our double the fun and double the host. So, Sarah, go ahead and tell us what we're talking about today.
Well, let's see what we got here. The first one is inventions that we take for granted. And this is based on episode 45, Water Bottles and Zip Ties, where we talk about inventions. And the second one is... Ooh, how good were the good old days?
All right.
And that's based on episode 16. Mark Antony is on MySpace.
So
we talked about time travel on that one.
good old inventions from the old days. All right. Well, you know what? Actually, when you picked out that topic just now, the inventions that we take for granted, it made me think of something that I never think about. And I got one recently. Shoehorns.
Oh, yeah.
Never use them.
They go in the drawer.
Yeah. But they
And
used to be a thing. I remember using them when I was younger, and
yeah.
I'm just like, I just break all the backs of my shoes now. It's not a big deal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't even care.
If you need
Yeah.
a shoehorn, that means the shoe's not the correct size. So just go to a different size.
Not
Well,
necessarily,
no,
not
not
necessarily.
necessarily.
So slip into
Because what it is it's typically for dress shoes, so you
Yeah.
can't loosen them up at all. But you want them tight because you don't want them if they're too loose,
don't
and
want
they're-
blisters,
They're,
yeah.
Apparently, my dress
Slip
shoes
around,
are
hurt your
just
feet.
crap.
Well, it depends on. I think it's mostly used for guys. Do
probably,
women
yeah.
use a lot of shoehorns?
I have never used.
I never
shoehorn
have.
In my life.
I remember hearing it in English class for compound words, and I was like, "What the heck's a shoehorn?" And
I it's like a musical instrument.
because it's like compound words like butterfly, shoehorn, and I was like, "What the heck is?" Because I was like, "That'd be hard to play in band." But yeah, that was my
Like
first
we
time
could just
hearing
make
about
up
it.
compound words.
Yeah, I'm
All
like,
right.
okay.
Yeah. That's
But yeah,
awesome.
no,
I
but
got
I
one
never used
recently.
it.
It was a compact one that folds, and you can stick it in your coat. I guess in case you want to take your shoes off while you're out and about. Maybe it's for the Japanese businessmen on the go, in order to put their shoes on. But
Oh, actually, I wonder
if the
if that actually
shoehorn's
kind of
made
makes
in
sense.
Japan, it might be.
But
Or in an area where that receives a lot of rain or snow, and so you'd leave for work
Yeah.
with galoshes or boots, and then
That's a
you
good
get
idea.
to the office and have to.
yeah. Or I was thinking about for airports. Now you have to take your shoes off everywhere.
Airports?
Although I've flown recently, and nobody dresses up for flying.
It's terrible.
No.
I dressed down this is the
People
first time
take
I've
their
ever really
shoes
dressed
off
down.
in airplanes.
Never done that. I think you have to take them off to get scanned or whatever. I mean, now that you
Yeah,
have to
to
do
be
full body scans, but this time I usually wear at least regular clothes. This last time I was traveling, I was like, nah. I was like, athletic
I ain't wearing
pants.
any clothes.
No, that wasn't. Yeah,
Walk right through security. I can't hide any.
they're like,
weapons
not
on
hiding
me, man.
nothing.
Yeah.
They're just like, well, there's one place we haven't checked. That was the sound of a glove.
And he was checking under his hat in case you guys weren't sure.
Yeah, okay, sure. We'll go with that.
Checking his nose.
So can you think of any inventions that you typically take for granted? Mainly, let's think about things that we've used regularly, almost on the daily, that we take for granted.
I know one thing I took for granted a lot was actually zippers. I think that's something that everybody has for clothing or coats or whatever. And I think I didn't become conscious of it until maybe about 4 or 5 years ago, because I was like, what is this thing? Sometimes when you look at it, it's something that you see all your life, and then you just kind of stop and stare, and you're like, why does this exist? You kind of, because that's how my mind. Why are we the way we are? But that's kind of how
I wonder that.
Who am
very,
I?
Yeah,
very often.
Yeah,
Why?
why? Yeah, just why, Dan? But zippers was something I thought was interesting. I think it's been around for 150 years or so. So it's technically, I guess, it's a pretty recent invention in comparison to other things. I think. I know. I saw this on Wikipedia, so I don't know how true it is, but I thought I had looked up somewhere that back in the day, like just regular button-down pants or regular outfits, it was just all buttons. And of course, you have issues with buttons. Zippers a lot easier to take off. Or apparently there would be a lot of accidents that would happen because the guys couldn't unbutton their pants in time. So the guy invented the zipper because it's easier. It's easier to easy up and down versus like, oh, I got 15 buttons. Because if you do look at like old clothes in like the 1800s, you know, everything was all buttons.
Well, they had a little tool to button stuff up, didn't they? Like a
Button
little
hook.
Yeah,
Is that what they're called?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there you go.
Wow, you said that so quickly. Do you have a button hook to go with Dan's shoehorn? Is that how that goes?
Don't need them anymore. Yeah, no. We lace up our shoes now, so we don't need a button hook anymore.
That's true.
Yeah, but it's just stuff like that which I think is fascinating. Like, how did you know to interlock, you know, the things together? Like, it's just stuff like that. Like, you start looking at it and you realize this is a pretty clever idea that really hasn't changed.
Yeah.
Like paper clips and staples. Those really haven't changed.
No, I take zippers for granted right up until the point where something gets stuck in one, and then I'm
Yeah, then you realize, oh, the invention works.
Oh my gosh.
I know. I shouldn't have said that.
Oh, that's where we're drawing the line. That's a zipper
That's
joke?
what we're trying.
Okay, I was thinking like when you're zipping up, like so the fabric gets stuck,
Yeah.
Sorry, I thought.
and then you just like
Yeah.
trying to zip it and it won't close.
Well, okay, well that too. I'm sorry.
No, that's too late. We've already crossed over to the
That's
other
all right.
side.
I think I did purposely say something just to leave it open ended.
Just to leave it
Yeah.
open. Open. Yeah,
Anyway,
anyway.
up to the imagination.
Yeah, but anyway, I think zippers are really fascinating to me.
Nice.
I think that's pretty cool.
I think something that people used to take for granted, at least until a couple of years ago, is toilet paper. Because
Yes.
when COVID, first had us in lockdown and people were buying gobs and gobs of toilet paper to where there wasn't any in stores, or they were putting a limit on how many, boxes of toilet paper that you could have. Or recently, at least here in Wichita, people had to buy water because we weren't able to use the running water like in the house because of
Water main broke.
the pipe. Or, yeah.
Oh gosh,
And
yeah.
so people were buying these big jugs of water or just getting like a ton of water bottles and just
Yeah.
filling up their cart and stuff. So I would say that is an everyday item, just having clean water. And in America, for the most part, the average person doesn't really have to worry about that. This isn't like a third world country where we have to
There's so much that we take for granted.
that we don't have to walk miles and miles just to drink dirty water. Like we're not, begging for a well to be dug in our area. But
Yeah.
even with those things that we use every day, I would say toilet paper and water is something that people take for granted.
It's funny that you're talking about toilet paper because that's actually one of the things I had looked up in terms of things we take for granted. So, did you know, according to this website, which is liveatpc.com, that apparently toilet paper was invented by the Chinese in the 2nd century, which is kind of cool.
What were they using before? Leaves or something?
You
Yeah,
don't
it
wanna
says,
know.
it said elsewhere if you weren't rich or of
Oh,
royalty,
no. I guess you're going to find out.
Yeah, I
you
guess
would
so.
you would use leaves, grass, stone.
Stone! Stop it. Oh my god.
This is what this says. I wouldn't do
Ouch.
that. Or just your hands or water.
I would use my hands. I'm not rubbing rocks on Sorry. Stones? Come on, you guys. You have to agree with that.
No.
You have to go. We're
A
going
sto-
stone shopping.
Can
Like,
you
oh,
just
that'll
go
work.
get a rock and just wipe your butt with it? Absolutely not. I'm sorry. You would use a rock?
I'm ready to move on.
Next topic.
I'm just saying.
No, we need toilet paper.
Yeah,
That's
So,
something that's a
thank you-
necessity. Yeah.
Thank you, 2nd century BC.
Or
Yeah.
bidets.
That is a very European thing. I don't.
I got buddies that are always talking because they have that thing called the tushy.
Yeah. Oh
And-
yeah.
Yeah, I've seen those.
Do you have one?
No, I don't, but I have a friend that has one.
Yeah, and
He
they
doesn't have a
love
tushy.
it, and they
I want
think
one.
It's great. Oh, you want?
I want to get one for sure.
I don't know.
I want to try it.
Nope.
No.
on our next Just Us Cookies episode.
I'll stick with toilet paper.
We have two very opposite sides of the argument here.
Civil War.
Are we pro bidet? Are we anti bidet? The new political separation starts here.
I don't even sign my birthday cards "Happy B Day."
Oh, dad joke, dad joke.
Ding, 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 ding.
We'll wipe that slate clean.
We're up to date, you too.
Yeah, people love him, but I don't know. I'm leery.
Yeah.
I've never even tried one, so I can't really say that. I'm sure it would be like, okay, I get it now, but I don't want.
Well, a lot of people, because of, during COVID and toilet paper, not being in stores and stuff, some people did change teams and they were
Yeah.
team bidet. So
Yeah.
That was a weird
Team
sentence I
TP
just
versus Team Bidet.
Moving on.
Yeah, I know how we're still on this topic. I know.
Sarah's the one that brought
I
it
have
up.
lost control of the podcast this time. So.
Okay, so now that we talked about that,
Yeah, Dan, get us out of here. Where are we?
Oh, are we? Oh, okay, we're done with it. We're
Yeah.
done
We're done
with
with
the
that.
inventions.
Just
All right.
help us get away from the toilet paper
Yeah.
conversation.
So one thing that I think that I've recently found out is more rare than we realized is the spectrum of broadband, like signals and stuff
Yeah.
that we use for like cell phones. I didn't like people were talking about 5G and all that stuff that's coming up, but I didn't realize like it seems like there's not going to be a lot in terms of like signal space left. I don't know where.
No, they just the
yeah.
FCC just sold off. What was it, 2 years ago? Like a whole range of spectrums for the 5G.
It's so weird.
And what really bites is that for churches and schools and things like that were counting on it for their equipment that operated in those frequencies for transmissions, it no longer works. And not only does
Oh,
it no
man.
longer work, but if you continue to use it and it interferes with Verizon signal or T-Mobile signal, they will come and
They'll find you.
and find you
Yeah.
Oh my
and
gosh.
shut you down.
It's
So
that's crazy.
yeah, but you're right. You think, I mean, that's something that you take for granted, just radio waves or microwaves that just go through the air. You think that
Yeah.
it's infinite, but it's not.
It's not.
It
Yeah.
is crazy. It's like someone is like taking possession over something that we can't see.
Yeah, it's like
technically.
somebody
It's
saying,
it's like
we
waves,
need
you know?
all this river. And you're like, but I need the river too.
Yeah. I was
But
thinking about
not
like
a-
air.
not anymore.
Like
Yeah,
if somebody's
air.
just like, well, this is my
Yeah.
air over here, and you
Yeah.
have to pay me money to breathe this air, and it's just like, wait, what?
And if you breathe my air,
Oh.
you get fined. You
Yeah.
know, you can't
That
see
would be
it.
crazy.
But also just our access too. Like I'm thinking about like going
Yeah.
forward. Like we just we just Google stuff all the time, right?
Wasn't that in Spaceballs when they were selling like air
That's our.
or something? What was that? It was one of those Mel Brooks like parodies or something.
It does sound like a milk.
But
Brooks
you
thing.
could get like a 6-pack of air or something. People were cracking it open just
They
to
did
breathe
that in the
clear.
Lorax too.
Oh, yeah.
I know mine's more kid friendly, but they,
Okay.
they did that in the Lorax. They were
As
selling
rid-
bottles of air.
It's funny
too.
because it doesn't even sound ridiculous anymore. Like it sounds crazy, but it's not. It's like who knows? In another decade or less, that might actually happen. I
Yeah.
don't know.
That's true. So then if that's the case, then if we're looking at because we're kind of on a downer note right now, right?
I know.
Like selling air and stuff like that. So thinking back to the past, then how good did we used to have it?
Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Dan, for that segue. Yeah, it was funny because we had talked about this, well, kind of, sort of, last season because me, Alan, and Charity were talking about like hairstyles and fashions that we like from way back when. And this kind of goes with it, like from a superficial standpoint, like what me and Charity said in multiple episodes, especially this one because we're talking about Mark Anthony's on MySpace. We were talking about time travel and how it doesn't always bode well for us because of obvious circumstances. But if we were either alive in that era or if we could actually visit a certain decade or something,
we
you
have
know,
to be middle-aged white males.
yes, probably we would have to change a few things.
Set some parameters on the dials
set some
before we go back
parameters, you know,
back in time.
like 6 foot, very Caucasian, red hair, beard, but at the same
With
time,
guns.
with guns and fire.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you know, because I do like watching a lot of old movies, I do like watching documentaries. My 21st century mind, I do tend to, you know, it's like, oh, well, how really was it back then? And of course, because nostalgia is going to always be there, everyone's like, oh man, you know, when I was a kid, everything was great, you know, and you're basing it off of yourself as an 8-year-old and not a full-grown adult. But in terms of like the entertainment and fashion and stuff, I really enjoy the early 20th century. I think that was once we were taking the modern stuff that happened in the 1800s, the Industrial Revolution, the electric light and all that kind of stuff, and we started bringing it into, you know, the early 1900s, and that's when stuff started coming, you know, automobiles and amusement parks and radio and television. So with all that stuff happening, it would have been cool to kind of be at the forefront of all that stuff happening. You know, people being able to talk in a film, like just to be in the theater, you know, around 1928, 1929 when you heard people's voices. Like that would have been cool to witness. So maybe me, it would have been cool to visit certain like landmark
We've
dates.
kind of lived through a moment like that already just in our lifetime of, you know, you know, from like our childhood, we still had landline phones with cords and cables and stuff. We still had answering machines, so we lived through that
transition.
the old fashioned technology. But, you know, we're currently using smartphones and HD cameras, and we were just talking about, you know, video games and stuff before and how those were changing and signal, you know, so we've already lived through a moment like that. It's just our own version of it. And I think with the way technology is progressing, we're going to live through another version of that. So, I mean, technically we are living in the good old days because, you know, 50 years from now, people will be like, oh, remember 2022, you know, and how they used to do this and that. Like, we're living in what people are going to feel nostalgic about.
I think what's really interesting is what you were talking about with the technology, like advancements in new technology. So like cinema or automobiles in particular, right? So like we live now where we have new automobiles that are coming out, like new electric cars, right? But only certain people can really afford to actually buy those and use them,
true.
right?
Yeah.
So when we think back on it, we're like, oh, we'd love to be, you know, around when those things came out, right? But like, would we necessarily be one of the people who could afford an automobile for the first time, or would we still be, you know, getting the horse out of the stable, you know, if you even had a horse?
Leaning out the stalls.
Actually, that's true, because if you look at, I don't know if you visit a lot of like Victorian houses and stuff, there's a lot around here in Wichita, but if you look at some of the houses, because they were made, it's almost they call it a garage, but it was basically like a stable for horses. So you would have a place where you have the horses and the carriage and stuff, and it'd be like our garage now, but just the way it was built, you know. I mean, so I guess it was one of those things, like stuff was going to happen inevitably. You know, the horseless carriage was going to happen, and talking pictures was going to happen, and television was going to replace cinema. That's what people were thinking. So I mean, yeah, I guess we've kind of gone through a lot of like that roller coaster change of it, and maybe I'm romanticizing the fact that, you know, we're all sitting here in our flapper dresses and our Great Gatsby tuxedos saying, you know, this stuff is the cat's pajamas in my transatlantic accent.
Tobacco is good for your health. 9 out of 10 doctors.
Yeah. Actually, that's true. Yeah, doctors did recommend that, but
that's
you
true.
know.
Yeah, I think everybody likes to think of themselves as like Nick Carraway or Jay Gatsby or whatever, but most of the people would be, you know, the people that they drove by on the street on the way.
Oliver Twist.
You know, hey, not underneath the billboard.
Yeah, and like I said, it's just because we watch films and we have a cinematic view of what life was. And not to say that it wasn't for, you know, the upper class, obviously. But I think it would still be cool to see. And then, of course, some of my favorite comedians and people that have influenced me in terms of my personality and my humor, it would have just been cool to, maybe if I couldn't have met them in person, at least to see them from a really close distance, be like, oh, man, that's Laurel and Hardy, you know, that's Morecambe and Wise, that's Cannon and Ball. So, and maybe that's it. It's the history that I appreciate, that I wish I could have been around for. And just because I've never been relevant, I feel like the stuff that I'm most relevant is the stuff that's already happened, which sounds really sad and depressing.
I still think, though, if you were born back then, you would look to like silent movies and vaudeville, and you know, you'd be like, oh, I wish I could meet, I don't even know these people's names. Give me an old person's name.
Mary Pickford.
Yeah. Oh, I would love to meet Mary Pickford. Like, that kind of acting is just top notch. Like, I still think you, because of who you are, you would still be looking back and wishing you could meet another.
Have you ever seen Midnight in Paris?
Yeah, I was actually just going to bring that up.
That's exactly what that's about.
It's been a while, but that was a great movie.
Yeah.
Now, I will say, talking about the good old days in terms of like fashion, I would love to see both Dan and Alan, like literally Dapper Dan, because that was a phrase.
Dan sort of started. He's had a little jacket on earlier. It's off.
Do you know what the problem is now? Is that if those, I don't want to call them costumes, but that's what they come across as, right? Like I own a fedora, right? But it looks odd to wear nowadays. It doesn't look like you put on a fedora and a suit, right? And you think you're going to be Humphrey Bogart. You're not Humphrey Bogart. You look like a person cosplaying as Humphrey Bogart is what it ends up being.
And I think because of that stuff, I think it's become like very costumey. However, if you were to go to like, it depends on where you go. If you go to a lot of like Goodwills or secondhand stores and you're able to find like actual stuff, like maybe from the 60s or something.
If you wear that type of stuff, it looks costumey. You look like you're trying to dress like a hobo or something. But if you actually get a modern day suit that's made to look like, you know, early,
like it's tailored for you.
It's tailored for you.
And get like a nice suit that's tailored for you, that's supposed to represent an old time, and then you can wear the fedora and stuff.
That's true.
I think at that point, it
Yeah.
looks like you did it on purpose. It looks like you dressed up nice instead of, hey, I went to Goodwill and I found this jacket and I'm
Yeah.
going to wear it.
Yeah, but you're picturing like the environment too, like it's a club, it's a something. It's not Alan and Dan walking through Dillon's, you know.
That is true too. There's not a lot of
It depends on
opportunity
what
to
you-
wear it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Like
it's
I
not-
work from home now, and there's
Yeah.
like I have all these button-down shirts and like polos and stuff like that. And I'm
Take
like,
your
well,
wife
I don't
out
need
on
any
a
of this.
date and dress
Yeah.
up really nice.
Well, that's true, and
Yeah.
that is the fun thing to do. Like when we were at a wedding recently and things like that, wearing those, but it's just like once in a while, It's not like every day.
Like I could totally like I don't know if you have it in your closet, but I could totally see you in a double-breasted suit and like a bow tie, very very put together. You need a monocle. Alan needs a monocle.
Oh, a monocle. How fun.
He'll look like a mixture of like the Pringles guy / the Monopoly man. He's looking at me like I don't believe it.
He
Yeah,
like
I'm
you're
like,
crazy.
I don't want to play dress up.
I'm not saying dress up.
Alan just wants to mow his lawn and
Yeah.
wear his dad's shoes and like the New Balance. Oh, that's not what you're wearing right
No,
now.
I'm wearing Skechers. They're
yes.
classy
Comfy.
comfort.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's just me. Like I said, I often think about stuff like that. So it's just more of like, listen to the mind of Sarah for 15 minutes.
I think it's the more that I learn about history, I thank God that I live in 2020.
Yeah.
And, I mean, just
2022.
2022.
But
yeah,
yes,
we're in
yes, I agree.
2022.
In the current
Especially,
time.
a series that when we're recording this just ended on Paramount Plus called 1883, and it is a mirror. I was in tears at the end of every episode, thinking, "Thank God I don't live in
that era.
1883."
Yeah.
I mean, whatever your political viewpoints are, we just went through a pandemic, and there were some solutions that came out of it. There was a really big problem, and there were solutions that came out of it. And some of the things that we just take for granted, even before, like wearing a mask. Okay, minus your political viewpoints, I think that it's incredibly courteous if you're not feeling good to put on a mask. I think that that's and I had never thought about that before. In fact, I thought that it was kind of weird when you saw people from other cultures wearing masks, and you're like, "What, is my air not good enough for you?" or something like that. And then to come to find out, they might be trying to protect me from like feeling under the weather or feeling ill or something like that. I'm like, that's incredibly courteous.
Yeah, that is.
So anyway, I think that we live. I don't want the good old days. And I appreciate that you have to have the good old days to get to where you
appreciate,
are.
yeah.
To appreciate it. But
we are
Anyway.
currently living in someone else's good old days. So
That's-
let's just enjoy where
that's-
we're at.
that's right.
that's
and
really
then
good
we'll
point.
listen to this episode 20 years from now. We'll be like, man, remember when we recorded?
We had to use a microphone. Now we just have to think it.
Hey, that'd be easier setup.
That's an
Hey,
easier and cheaper
That's true.
setup.
bring on the mind mics.
Well, I'm afraid the good times have to come to a close.
Good
But
times roll.
Sarah, why don't you tell the good people out there where they can listen to episodes that we recorded in the good old days?
Yes, yeah. If you're listening from the past, we have this thing called a website, and you can listen
That
to
may
us.
or may not exist.
The World Wide
The
Web.
World Wide Web, and
So
it's,
just think these things as she's talking.
yeah, you can check the old archives called doublestuffpod.com, and you can brush away the cobwebs on this thing called social media platforms, which is Facebook, I think, and Instagram, which I think might still be around, and something called the YouTubes, the tubes of you, and it's Double Stuff Podcast, and then there's another one called Twitter, which I think has a weird sound, but it's Double Stuff P, and I think there's another letter P in there. So check us out, guys,
If we're still here.
if we're still here. Woo.